All right, let's jump into a deep dive all about hormone health. I'm excited about this one.
Oh, yeah.
You sent me some really interesting articles,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like you're really curious about how hormones work
Yeah.
and how to make sure everything's balanced. But we're going to unpack all of that today. So buckle up. Let's get started.
Awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't really realize just how much hormones are running the show.
Yeah, it's true.
They're like these tiny little messengers zipping around and impacting everything.
Yeah.
Like our metabolism, our energy, our moods, even our skin.
Yeah. I always think about it
Yeah.
like an orchestra, You've got all these different instruments
Right?
playing their parts, and the hormones are like the conductor,
I like that.
making sure everything's in sync.
Yeah. And if one section's a little off,
Yeah.
the whole thing can kind of fall apart.
Totally. You start to hear the wrong notes, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Exactly. And one of the articles you sent really emphasized
Yeah.
how these hormonal imbalances can show up in some surprising ways. Like you might not think that your sleep problems or
Yeah.
that dry skin you've been having
Yeah.
could be linked back to your hormones, but
Totally.
it's a possibility.
It definitely is.
Let's take cortisol, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone talks about it as the stress hormone, right?
Right.
But it does so much more than just handle stress.
Oh, way more.
It affects blood sugar, metabolism, even inflammation.
It's a busy one, that's for sure.
It is. And you mentioned in your notes that you've been feeling
Mm.
extra tired lately and having trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any other changes, like maybe feeling colder than usual? Or changes in your hair or skin?
Well, my skin has been kind of dry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because those could all be signs of a thyroid issue.
Yeah.
And the thyroid, for anyone listening who doesn't know,
Right.
it's this little gland in your neck. And it's super important because it controls your
Yeah,
metabolism.
it's like the engine of your body in a way.
It is. And if it's not working right,
Yeah.
it can really mess things up.
Big time.
So what can you do if you think something might be off?
Well, I think getting a hormone health checkup is a good starting point.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just for women going through menopause.
Right.
Anyone can benefit from it, really.
Especially if you're noticing those weird symptoms we talked about.
Exactly. Or even if you just want to be proactive,
Totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of, hormone health often gets associated with women, but men have hormones too.
Oh, absolutely. And they fluctuate too,
They do.
It's not just a women's issue.
It's not. So let's talk about what a hormone health checkup actually involves.
Okay, so usually you'll start by having a chat with your doctor.
Okay.
They'll talk about your medical history, any symptoms you're having, your lifestyle, like diet and exercise, all of that.
Right.
And then they'll probably order some blood tests.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, to measure the levels of different hormones.
So like which hormones specifically?
Well, the main ones they look at are thyroid hormones, cortisol, insulin, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. Those are the key players.
And I think I read that sometimes they do saliva or urine tests too.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Is that like more accurate or something?
Well, it depends on the situation, really.
Well-
Sometimes those tests can give you a more detailed look at how your hormones are fluctuating throughout the day,
Okay.
which can be helpful for certain conditions. But for most people,
Yeah.
a blood test is enough to get the information they need.
Gotcha. So we've talked about getting tested and stuff, but one of the articles you sent, it really stuck with me because
Yeah.
it talked about how
Mm.
it's not just about medical interventions.
Right.
Like you can actually make lifestyle changes that will help balance your hormones.
Oh, absolutely. Lifestyle plays a huge role.
It does. So let's break that down a bit. In your notes, you had some practical steps highlighted. First up, a balanced diet. So tell me, what kind of impact does our diet have on all this hormone stuff?
Well, think of it like this. When you're constantly eating processed foods, sugary drinks, and unhealthy fats, it's like you're throwing a wrench in the whole system.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It can lead to inflammation and something called insulin resistance, which can totally throw your hormones out of balance.
Ah, so that's why eating healthy is so important.
Exactly. When you focus on eating whole foods like fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats, you're giving your body the nutrients it needs to produce and regulate hormones effectively.
Well, it's like you're giving your body the right tools for the job.
Exactly.
So food's a big one. You also mentioned exercise. What kind of exercise is best for, keeping those hormones happy?
Honestly, any kind of movement is good. But a good mix of cardio, some strength training, and even flexibility exercises is ideal.
Okay, so like a well-rounded routine.
Yeah, because exercise helps regulate your insulin sensitivity, which is super important for hormone balance, but it also helps with things like mood and sleep.
Right, those are important too.
Hmm.
Speaking of sleep, did you know that lack of sleep can mess with your hormones?
Oh, big time. When you don't get enough sleep, it can actually increase your cortisol levels, which, remember, is that stress hormone.
Hmm.
And when cortisol's high, it can throw off other hormones like your thyroid hormones and even your sex hormones.
So make sure you're getting those Z's.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, there's stress. I feel like everyone knows stress is bad, but how does it actually impact our hormones?
Stress is a major hormone disruptor. It's like this. When you're stressed, your body goes into fight or flight mode and pumps out cortisol to help you deal with the situation. But when you're chronically stressed, those cortisol levels stay elevated, and that can lead to a whole cascade of hormonal imbalances.
Yikes. So finding ways to manage stress is super important.
It's crucial. Things like yoga, meditation, or even just spending time in nature can help bring those cortisol levels down and keep your hormones balanced.
Totally. And speaking of things that can throw our hormones off, one article you sent talked about endocrine disruptors. Have you heard of those?
Oh, yeah, those are sneaky little things. They're chemicals that can mimic or interfere with your hormones, and they're found in all sorts of everyday
I
products.
know, it's kind of scary, right? Like one article mentioned a study linking BPA exposure to estrogen imbalances, and BPA is in so much stuff.
It is. It's in a lot of plastic, so switching to glass or stainless steel containers for food and drinks is a good start.
Yeah, and looking for products labeled BPA free.
Exactly. It's all about being aware and making informed choices.
You know, this whole deep dive has been super eye-opening. It really makes you realize just how important hormones are for overall health.
And how much power we have to support our hormonal balance through lifestyle choices.
That's a great point. So as we wrap things up, I want to encourage everyone listening to think about what we've discussed. Do any of the symptoms we talked about resonate with you? If so, maybe it's time to chat with your doctor about getting a hormone health checkup.
It's a great first step.
It is. And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about our bodies, the better equipped we are to make choices that support our health and well-being.
Couldn't agree more.
So keep learning, keep asking questions, and take charge of your health.
Absolutely.